today is an especially important day to remember all those that we lost in conflict and those UK forces that are around the world. But it does seem that this year's Armistice Day matters more than the ones in recent years, and that's because war seems closer to the UK than it has done for a very long time. The illegal invasion of Ukraine by Putin and the events in the Middle East mean that the pictures we're seeing on our TV screens at night of the horrors of war really bringing home the sacrifices that generations of Brits have made in support of our country and of British values.
The people from the pro-Palestinian marchers make the point that Armistice is about ceasefire. They're calling for ceasefire, so they think that today is actually a very appropriate day to be marching. Do you think they should be marching at all anywhere in London today?
Well, I think one of the British values that people went to war in defence of, not only of freedom and of democracy, was the right to protest as well. Now, people do have that right to protest, but they don't have a right to spew hate on our streets. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia have no place in our capital, especially on Remembrance Weekend. And that's why it's important that politicians of all colours, the opposition, but especially those people in office today, the Home Secretary, should be backing our police, their operational independence and integrity to make decisions to keep our capital safe, to protect remembrance events, especially the cenotaph on Whitehall, and to make sure that when people do protest, to have their voices heard, that they can do so safely, but most importantly, that the rest of London and the rest of the capital can go about their business peaceful and unimpeded by anyone protesting.
And there's been a lot of people getting in touch today with us, and there is concern. I know this protest is meant to start at noon today and is not near the cenotaph, but there is some concern that perhaps some people will gather and disrupt the 2-minute silence. That would be unforgivable, wouldn't it?
Well, the 2-minute silence on Armistice Day is our moment for Armistice Day to remember those that we have lost, those who served our country. I'll be joining a 2-minute silence today, as I expect the majority of our country will. If you want to see an end to war in the Middle East, and I think everyone does, the question is about how do you get there in the most efficient, effective and fastest route. I don't believe a ceasefire is the way to do that, because a ceasefire today will keep Hamas in charge of Gaza. Hamas have already said that they want to conduct more atrocities, more terror attacks like they did on the 7th of October. That's why, I get why people are protesting. I get why people want a ceasefire. But the best way of getting there, I think, is for a series of humanitarian pauses that build support for the peace process, that build support for a two-state solution, the return of hostages, and make sure that Israelis and Palestinians are able to live side by side. Now, that is, I think, what the protesters, what everyone wants today. The question is about how we get there, but disrupting remembrance events will not help us get to peace any faster. And today we need to make sure that we are challenging anti-Semitism and Islamophobia wherever it rears its ugly head.
Live on the television and the radio right now, if there are any people watching who are planning to come and protest and march, what would you say to them now? You can speak to them now. What do you actually want to tell them?
Well, I want to say to everyone on the march and in the capital that today is about remembrance. It's about remembering those people who died, making the ultimate sacrifice for our country, protecting remembrance activities, the cenotaph on Whitehall. I know the march won't be going near the cenotaph, but making sure that there's no disruption to any remembrance activities is what today should be all about. I get people who have strong views on what's happening in the Middle East. I want to see a cessation of violence. Too many Palestinians are dying. Too many Israelis died on the 7th of October. So we need to get to peace. And the fastest way to get to peace, I think, is not with an immediate ceasefire. ceasefire that keeps the terrorists in charge of Gaza. It's with humanitarian pauses that allow aid to get to those people who really need it. Because what we're seeing on TV is horrific. The scenes are terrible. Too many people are dying in the Middle East. So we need to get to an effective peace, a durable peace, as quickly as we can. And that is with a series of humanitarian pauses and an end to Hamas being in charge of Gaza.
Just a very quick final thought. We're of a similar age, I think, and so you, like me, will have had grandparents who lived through certainly the second, in my case actually the First World War as well. That you must have some memories of things they told you about what that time was like.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to represent a military city, so I represent Plymouth with our rich naval history. You know, going to war is a horrendous experience. It's a horrific experience. What we ask people in uniform to do to keep us all safe is really difficult and challenging. And that's why those people who often go to war don't want to share that stories. It's not the glory that we sometimes see in war films. It's hard, it's trudging, and you lose people. That's what today's, in my mind, is all about. It's not just those people who we've lost. Tomorrow I'll be on Plymouth Hoe with the Archbishop of Canterbury for our remembrance service in Plymouth. And we're remembering all those whose names are on war memorials across our city and across the country. But we should also remember those people who came back from war and were forever changed by it. Those people who still carry, not just from wars 100 years ago, 80 years ago, but from more recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, those people who carry physical injuries and mental injuries as well. So our support for veterans, for those who serve, must be long-lasting. It can't just be about Remembrance Weekend. As important as it will be on Armistice Day today and Remembrance Sunday tomorrow, we need to make sure that support for our veterans and our armed forces and those families who support those people in uniform matters every single day of the year. We've still got a way to go to get there, but Remembrance Weekend is our chance, I think, to be clear about thanking those people who served and just pausing from our busy lives to make sure we're remembering those who didn't come back from war.